Wait, go.
Hi, my name is Gurkirat and this is my partner Leonardo. Today we'll be presenting our indigenizing space and place slash indigenous land assignment.
All right, so the first place is called São Paulo, Brazil, and the people that used to live there are called the Guarani people. So this place is extremely important to me because it's where I was born and where my family lives. My beach house is 30 minutes away from the indigenous village called Aldeia do Rio Silveira. I have been there several times and I have studied about the Guarani indigenous culture before, and that's why I selected this place. Why São Paulo? So again, my family lived there. I'm from São Paulo. I've been to the reserve many times. And let's talk a little bit about the Guarani people. So the Guarani people were one of the first people contacted after Europeans arrived in South America around 500 years ago. In Brazil, there are today 51,000 Guarani living in 17 states, making them the country's most numerous tribes. Many others live in neighboring countries such as Paraguay, Bolivia, and Argentina. The Guarani people in Brazil are divided into three groups, Kiowa, Nandeva, and Mibia, of which the largest is Kiowa, which means forest people. They're deeply spiritual people. Most communities have a prayer house and a religious leader, whose authority is based on prestige rather than formal power. Today, they're squeezed onto tiny patches of land surrounded by cattle ranches and vast fields of soy and sugarcane. Some have no land at all and live camped by roadsides. All right, let's talk a little bit about the treaties and indigenous territories. In the last 500 years, almost all the Guarani's land has been taken from them. Waves of deforestation have converted the once fertile Guaranese homeland into a vast network of cattle ranches and sugar cane plantations for Brazil's biofuel market. Many of the Guarani were herded into small reservations, which are now chronically overcrowded. In the Dorados Reserve, for example, 12,000 indigenous people are living on a little more than 3,000 hectares of land. Um, and the Brazilian Indigenous People Articulation Organization, also known as APIB, is a agglutination instance and national reference of Brazil's indigenous movement that was born with the purpose of strengthen the indigenous people's unity and the articulation among the different religions and indigenous organizations in the country. Also, one of their purposes is to unify the indigenous people struggle, the list of claims and demands, and the indigenous movement's politics. They also want to mobilize the indigenous peoples and organizations of the country against the threats and attacks to the indigenous right. The Indigenous People Articulation Organization was created by the Free Land ATL of 2005, the national mobilization that is performed every year from 2004 to make visible the indigenous rights situation and claim for the Brazilian state, the demands and claims attendance of indigenous people. All right, and let's talk a little bit about my second place, which is Burnaby Heights. Burnaby Heights is located in Burnaby, British Columbia. Um, and the people that used to live in there and still live are called Coast Salish peoples, Musqueam people, Tsleil-Tooth Nation, and Squamish peoples. Um, uh, Let me just go back a slide. I'm sorry. All right. So I chose this place because it was the first place I lived in Canada. 4 years ago, when I first came here, I visited my family in this location. After this visit, me and my family decided that we wanted to move to Canada. This location has sentimental value because it helped us to decide to change our lives completely. Burnaby Heights has also been the place where I lived since the day I moved to Canada. And also all of my friends from high school live here. All right, let's talk a little bit about the Coast Salish peoples. Okay, as with the arrival of Europeans in other areas of North America, the lives of the Coast Salish people were forever changed. With tribes being split up, extensive land and population losses traditions being discontinued and many of their ancient artifacts being destroyed, the Coast Salish peoples are still trying to rebuild their lifestyle after 3 centuries of displacement. There has been a revival of interest in Coast Salish art and culture over the past decade. Many of the tribes still exist today, and they continue to speak traditional languages and exercise traditional beliefs, practice, and legends. All right. Now let's talk a little bit about the Musqueam people. So today they're a strong, growing community of over 1,300 members. Many of the members live on a small portion of traditional territory known as the Musqueam Indian Reserve, located south of Marine Drive near the mouth of the Fraser River. Musqueam peoples have always moved throughout the territory using the resources it provides for fishing, hunting, trapping, and gathering. They remain distinct and cultural practices are strong. Despite the devastating impact of residential schools, colonial laws banning traditional ceremonies, and other attempts to assimilate them. Next slide. The Tsleil-Waututh Nation. So the Tsleil-Waututh Nation is one of many groups of Coast Salish peoples living in the Pacific Northwest throughout British Columbia, Washington, Oregon, and Oregon. Their knowledge of the lands and waters of their territory has shaped the people. Today, the Tsleil-Waututh Nation is 500 plus people, strong and growing. The nation draws on the knowledge of its ancestors to remedy past wrongs, reclaim its territories and traditions, and advance into a bright future. The Squamish people. The Squamish people are the descendants of the Coast Salish First Nations people that lived in present-day Greater Vancouver, Gibsons, Landing, and Squamish, BC. Their territory is 6,732 square kilometers. There are about 4,000 members of the Squamish Nation. They speak Snishin. The number of fluent speakers is extremely low, but they're aggressive in bringing back to their youth. Most of their territory is found along the ocean. Their clothing, food, housing, and transportation have adapted to the temperature rainforest. All right, so now the treaty and indigenous territory. So the city of Burnaby recognized that the city is located on the ancestral and unceded homelands of the, I'm gonna pronounce this wrong, it's Hunquam and is Savmesh speaking peoples and is grateful to be on this territory and promotes truth and reconciliation messages. And the organization I chose is called Aboriginal Mother Center Society, which is a place where Aboriginal mothers who are facing homelessness and or dealing with their children or a child or children in the care of the ministry can come to stay. The women can rebuild their sense of self-worth and identity for a better future for themselves and their children. Aboriginal Mother Center Society is a place where they can come to be together as a family. This place would be best fit for babies, children, and mothers, anybody who is coming through a block in their lives. All right, so now I'm gonna pass the baton to my friend and colleague, Gurkirat. Go ahead, Gurkirat.
So the place that I chose was Vaughan, Ontario, and Lake Erie. For Vaughan, Ontario, the territory of the Hernot, Wanat, and the Hasune people. Vaughan is home to many First Nations people today, such as the Métis and Inuit people. Next slide. Why I picked Vaughan, Ontario. My family is the big reason why I picked Vaughan, Ontario. Right now, I have lots of family members that are in Vaughan, Ontario. It's the closest place to my birthplace, which is Toronto, Ontario. It's also one of the best places to visit during summer because there are many places to visit, such as Wonderland and other historical sites, such as the CN Tower. The land was first occupied by the Hernat Wanat people and the Hasune people. Next slide. Who are they and where do they live? So for the Hernan Wanat people, during the fur trade, the Hernat Wanat were allies of the French. prior to the 1600, the Hernon Wanet numbered about 20 to 25,000 people, but between 1634 and 1642, they were reduced to about 9,000 by a series of epidemics, particularly measles, influenza, and smallpox. In 1648 and 1649, armed with Dutch firearms, they defeated and dispersed the Wanat people, following by the Patunan in 1649 and 1650, the neutral party by 1651, and the Erie by 1656. During these wars, about half of the post-academic Huron Wanted population was dismantled. Their subsistence economy was based on corn, beans, squash, and fish. Hunting was a minor importance expect in the fall and late winter, and they occurred well beyond the boundaries of the occupied territories. The Hasuna people are originally a confederation of 5 nations inhabiting the northern part of New York State, and the Hasuna consisted of 5 other nations such as the Siakana, Kayagua, Onondia, Onondaga, and Mohawk. Today, Hasune live on well-populated reserves known as reserves in the United States, as well as off-reserve communities. It later became a 6th nation in the Confederacy because of the Tukarona tribe, which was later joined in 1650. Hassune and New France were often at war with each other. The Hassuna people frequently raided French settlements on the St. Lawrence, and in 1660 at the Long Sault, and in 1689 in Quebec, Hassunans sent large armies to attack the colony. New France later replied with attacking Hassuna towns in 1666, 1687, 1693, and 1696. Next slide, please. Treaties. The Hernon Wanet nation signed a peace treaty with the British in 1760 as a 7 years war. And on August 1st of 1805, the Crown of Ontario purchased a land of 250,000 and 380 acres of land for the sum of 10 shillings, while the Mississauga was reserved for First Nations people to exclusively fish on the Ecoka Creek. The indigenous territory is on the north and south shores of the St. Lawrence River between St. Marine River and the Saguenay River. Next slide, please. The Hassune Treaty. With the Treaty of Alabine in 1701, Hassune sold the lands of the Great Lakes to Britain in return for protection and continued hunting and fishing rights. The treaty means that a way that they have established for their people to live together in peace, and that each nation will respect the ways of the other as they meet to discuss solutions to the issues that come before them. Hassunan people also inhabited the north part of New York State, and also have traditional lands in southern Ontario, eastern Quebec, and the northern part of New York State. Next slide. Neme Res is a program that is built to help Indigenous people reconnect with their culture and practice the ceremonies that their ancestors once did when they were alive. Also, they learn ritual for everyday life. They have elders that speak to men and do activities and meet the elders twice a week. They also have a team of elders that help Indigenous people with drug addictions, alcohol addictions, and also mental health issues. Lake Iraq. Lake Iraq is home of the Squalid people. Lake Iraq is located on the shore of Harrison Bay and northeast of Chilliwack on the Fraser Valley. Why Lake Iraq? Lake Iraq was a place I had no idea about till one day when I had to go to the reserve and play a soccer game against a team of full Indigenous people. It was really mind-blowing to me that we had to play a team of Indigenous people, and I would say it was a little bit exciting. We played them twice, and during those matches, in both matches, I asked their players a few questions about their culture and how the past how does the past affect them today, and how do they live on with that burden under them. Unfortunately, I don't remember the answers, but they did give me some detailed answers. And on one of the websites that I referenced, you can go look down, and it's a person's name with his kids. His name's Joey, and he's on the website. So it's pretty mind blowing how we played a team that are Indigenous and have a somewhat good relationship with them after, you know, fighting with them and stuff. And they also told me that I can ask them anything, feel free to ask them anything, and that I shouldn't feel bad because that's history. Even though it's a dark part of Canada's history, it's still history. Next slide. Squalid people struggled for land when residential schools were still going on. They had made agreements with the government for the land that they have today. And on those lands, they built parks for the community, soccer fields, as I said before, and housing for people that like to live there. And as I speak today, they have a community of 300 people and growing. Squalid treaties. They did not sign any treaties, but they did have agreements such as the C Amendment 4, C Amendment 3, the C Amendment 2, and the C Amendment 1. Treaty and Indigenous Territory. Committed to, Lakuma First Nation. Committed to work together to implement the strategic visions of the people by allocating resources, setting annual goals, and engaging members in their culture. They practice their culture and they find their identity. In addition, most First Nation people go there to expand the knowledge of their culture and practice those cultures every day for the healing process, as we talked in class multiple times. Who are they and where do they live now? Well, as of right now, the Squalid people are on the shore of Harrison Bay, northeast of Chilliwack, and are in the Fraser Valley. They are members of the Stalo people, but they have their own tribe in between. But they are also part of the Squamish people, which are Surgon in English, means Surgon people. They joined when they were getting, I believe, attacked by settlers, and they were forced to move out, and then later they came back, and they had decided to fight for the land, which they went to the government and then had those agreements, those amendments C4s, 3, 2, and 1. Thank you so much for our presentation.
Here are references. Let me just show the reference pages.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Gerald, for listening.
Thank you for listening to us, and thank you. Bye-bye.